Fewer and fewer of you even know who Rerun or What's Happening is. Later, just trust me on this, go to YouTube, type Rerun What's Happening Dance. Oh, ma'am, do you want to do that for us real quick? I saw you in your seat just demonstrating dance. I caught it. Sir, is she with you? Who is she to you? She just did the rerun dance. What's your name, ma'am? Camila. You're not gonna do it for me. Oh, you don't have the music. Oh, you don't have the music. You didn't have the music when you did it right there next to your husband. Okay, Camila, we'll let it slide, okay? But later, Google Rerun What's Happening Dance. So Von Ranke began putting all of these stories together. Every hero, every villain, every warlord, every president, every politician, every artist, every dancer, every inventor, every story he could find, he became a magnet for stories. Literally paying people all over the world to give him books and documents so that he could begin putting together what turned out to be the first detailed timeline of human history. It did not take him weeks or months, it took him decades. He worked literally until his dying day. He didn't even finish it. He got all the way through, it appears, like the 1500s. He went all the way back to early humanity and made his way up to the 1500s, detailing human history. And here's what he expected. His expectation was that when he would put all of these stories in chronological order, when he would put them all in chronological order, he thought it would teach him that over time, human beings were getting better and better and better. In fact, one of Leopold von Ranke's contemporaries is Charles Darwin. They were peers. Do you know what Charles Darwin is known for? What? Theory of evolution. And the theory of evolution basically states as much, that over time, we get better and better and better versions of human beings. That they evolved from some other state, and we are now, according to Darwin's theory, we are now in our most evolved state. And so von Ranke expected that theory, and even though Darwin pioneered that theory, it was how most people thought time worked. That over time, human beings got better and better and better. So he put all of these stories in order, and he expected to find that over time, human beings would get better and better. I'm gonna walk a little bit because I have to show you this. I'll come over here in just a second, but let me demonstrate something for you. What von Ranke expected was that, let's imagine for a moment that these are the earliest human beings, okay? And that this is us today, right here in the tip of this corner. What von Ranke thought was that human beings from the earliest humans until today were getting better and better and better and better and better and better. But as he put it all in chronological order, what he soon found was that he had confused the steady improvement. Hold on one second. I'm too far away from my laptop. 1 second. Oh, I have to stay close to it for it to work. Oh, just go with me for a second. There we go. What von Ranke thought was that if he put all of the humanity in chronological order, that people would get better and better and better. That if he put all of the stories of human history in order, that it would look like this. That it would look like a steady progression of humanity. But what he found, when he put them in order, when he broke down all of human history chronologically, this is just a pictorial guideline of the history of London, what he found was that humanity did not look like a steady progression. What he found was that humanity looked more like this. Hold on one second. That sometimes human beings were amazing. They would work their way up, but then sometimes human beings were horrible. And not in chronological order. That sometimes human beings were peaceful, cooperative, collaborative. He found points in human history where there was little to no war. I don't mean biblical Garden of Eden perfection. Human beings have always had problems. But he found points in human history where there was no starvation, no famine, no lack, and no war. Were there still problems? Of course. But what he found was that it wasn't in chronological order. Is that sometimes human beings would be awesome, and then they would collapse and be the ugliest, most violent, horrible creatures on earth. Slaughtering sometimes millions and millions of people. Through war or famine or whatever. Almost always man-made. And then they would work themselves out of the hole they found themselves in and claw and scratch and get out of the hole only to go to a place uglier and deeper than they had ever been before. What he expected was that over time, human beings were going to get better and better and better. And what he learned was that he had confused the steady improvement of humanity with the steady improvement of technology. It took him 30 years to realize, oh, the people aren't getting better. It's just their gadgets. Like, think over your life. I'm 39. If I look at the history, say this is the day I'm born, and this is me today. If I look at the history of the telephone over the course of my life, it's changed radically. Here's how I know it's changed. We had just moved to California, and I had dropped one of my daughters off at a performing arts school that she had just gotten into. I was so nervous. California is like a different country. I mean, not only is it so far away, like culturally, it's just a different place. We had been living in Atlanta for almost 20 years. We moved across the country. We're in Southern California. She gets into this performing arts school. I'm so nervous. I had just bought her first cell phone. And she gets out of the car, and I put the window down, and I say, hey, call me if you need anything. I put my pinky and my thumb up like this. I said, call me if you need anything. And she was dead serious. I thought she was playing a joke on me. She looked back at me and she said, Dad, I'll call you, but what is this you're putting on your face? And my brain could not compute what she had just said to me. Because for my entire life, this is the universal symbol for a telephone. Do you know why this is the universal symbol for the telephone? Because for the first 20 years of my life, and for many of you, for the first 30, 40, 50 years of your life, a phone looked like a banana. But for her, a phone looked like this. So this thing that I like, this pinky and thumb thing that I'm doing means phone to me. But she literally looked at me and said, I'll call you, but why are you doing that? Because over the course of my life, that technology has, when I was her age, there was one phone in the house. No cell phones. There was one phone in the house, and it was on the wall of my mother's kitchen. And it had a long curly cord on it. You couldn't even have a PG-13 phone call on those phones. No, there was like all stuff that happens on phones today, like the juiciest it could get would be like you would get that phone and try to stretch that cord away from your mother as far as it would go. Hey baby was like, that was it. Because also, this is something you don't even understand this. Someone could also have another phone in the house. And on the other phone, they could pick up another phone in the house and secretly listen to you on your call. So you never even had to live through. Listen, if half of you had parents who could secretly listen to your cell phone calls, you would never live to get to NC State. Like, we lived in constant fear that at any given moment, someone might pick up that phone and listen for a very long time. Because the technology changes. And Von Ranke, he broke it down. He said, over time, think of the history of transportation. Let's just pretend for a moment. Let's say human beings have existed for 10,000 years. For 9,900 of those, there were no planes. For 99% of human history, you could not, for 99% of human history, moving from New York to California would take you months. And half of your family would die on the journey. There were no planes. For 98% of human history, there were no cars. Think of the history of communication, the history of medicine. Von Ranke I read a note that he had about how in the mid-1800s, they were just now figuring out how to put people to sleep when they operated on them. Meaning that for the previous 99% of human history, whatever operation or surgery you had, you were wide awake. And he said the problem was they found ways to put people to sleep during surgery, but most of them weren't waking up. They hadn't quite mastered the waking up part yet. Over time, the technology gets better and better and better, but the people don't. Here was his fear. And I think it's where we are now. Listen, I don't know if we're here. Can you see my red dot there? I don't know that we're here or here. I'll tell you what I do know. I know we're not here. I don't think there is a Republican or a Democrat. That's not partisan. I don't think there's a person in the room that thinks that's where we are right now. We could debate where down here we are, but we're not here, and we're not here, and I don't think a single person in the room believes that. If this is how human beings work, and we're getting better and better and better and better, and this is us right there, that means Donald Trump is peak humanity. Like, that's a joke that tells itself. I don't think, nobody believes that. Except for him. He believes it. He literally tweeted yesterday that no president in the history of America has ever worked harder than me. Those were his words. It's like, oh really, you think you worked harder than Abe Lincoln in the Civil War? During the Civil War. You're working harder than that. Now, you're not second or third, you're first. No. I think he believes this. But that's how gadgets unfold. It's how our phones are getting better and better and better. I never could have imagined a day as a child that I would watch entire seasons of television on my phone. Like, many of you don't even have a television, right? Your phone is your phone and your TV. Like, how many of you have used the download option on Netflix, where you actually download the shows? I never could. When I was a kid, this is gonna weird some of you out, there were things called video cassettes. And they were rectangular pieces of plastic with film, physical film, inside of them. And one film was bigger than your whole phone. The notion that you could now have 10 films on your phone, I could not imagine that. Because over time, technology has changed so radically, but humanity hasn't. And here was his fear, is what's going to happen when humanity is down here and technology is at its peak. What's going to happen if humanity is here, but technology is down here? When here's our technology, but down in the dip is our humanity. Give me just a few minutes. All right. I have 15 minutes? Oh, okay. That's all I need. Just go with me. Go with me for 15 minutes. It's hard to know a moment in history when you're in it. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink. And the book is about how profound the thoughts you have in the blink of an eye can be. The whole book is about how, he could have called the book gut. The book is about, it could have called it brain, it could call it, the book is about how a thought or a feeling that you have in the blink of an eye is actually enormously complex. So I'm 39 years old. If you multiply that by 365 and factor in for leap year, I've been around for thousands and thousands of days. And what Malcolm Gladwell says is that thought that you have in the blink of an eye when you see something, he said it's as unique to you as your fingerprint. Because it took thousands of days, for me, tens of thousands of days to create it. Here's what I know. Almost every day, sometimes several times a day, I have a thought in the blink of an eye, this is not right. How many times today, yesterday, this week, this month, have you seen something and thought, that's wrong? And it's happening at such a pace that it's hard to remember what was problematic last week. It's hard to remember. I'll unpack it this way. How many people can you name that have been killed by police in 2019? When I ask that question, if I say 10, 5, 4, 3, most people can no longer name one. In great part because we've been overwhelmed with other information. This year is on pace to be the deadliest year ever for police brutality. We can't name a single person. If I asked you, how can any of you name 3 from last year? Most people can't. I was in a room with 10,000 people, and I got all the way down to, I said, how many can name 10? There were 1,300 people who had been killed by police last year. How many can name 10, 8, 5? Nobody. In a room of 10,000 people, we could get down, and there were like 3 or 4 people in the room who could name 3. And then I think they were lying. I don't ever want to just say like, okay, name them. Their stories are hardly even being told. I just know that we're not at the peak. I don't know how far down in that dip we are, or if we're, let's see if I can show it to you. I don't know if we're here and we're going down here, or if we're here and going down. I know that we're not here. Not here. This is the transatlantic slave trade. Right? This is the Holocaust. Now, if you ask people in Yemen where they are right now, Yemen may say we're here. I don't think in the United States we're here. I don't know if we're here going down or here going down. All I can say for sure is that we're not here. Are you understanding me? Let me push it for a second. If we're getting better and better over time, how do we explain this? I hope that each of you get to go to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It's the new museum in Washington, D.C. And they have this actual document on the wall. What is this? Does anyone know? It's a slave ship. Let me tell you what it really is. It's a business plan. This was a man's business plan. What business was that man in? The business of stealing, shipping, and distributing human beings. And this business plan was his attempt at determining how many human beings can we fit onto this ship. It's a business document. This is something he would literally show investors and explain to them how much money he could get off of each person and how many people he could literally even fit between the heads and feet of others. Here's how I know we're not getting better and better over time, because this image, if we're getting better and better over time, let me see if I can go back. If this is the beginning of human history and this is us today, we'll just use the illustration of 10,000 years. The transatlantic slave trade, it took place right here. If we're getting better and better and better, if we're getting better and better and better over time, how do we explain that? Because in the scheme of human history, this was yesterday. A woman literally voted in North Carolina, actually, in the 2016 election, whose father had been enslaved. That's how recent this is. If we're getting better and better and better, how do we explain the wounds on his back? If we're getting better over time, how do we explain them? I live in Brooklyn, New York, and in our borough, outside of Israel, the borough of Brooklyn has the largest living number of survivors of the Holocaust of any city in America. People who endured this are still alive. This is at Auschwitz. You should follow the Auschwitz Museum on Twitter. It's a profound account. This is a pile of tens of thousands of shoes, including children's shoes, the shoes are still there, but all the bodies perished. And I'm troubled because experts and people from the Anne Frank Museum and the Auschwitz Museum say over and over again that today reminds them of the years that preceded this, where people are dehumanized. Look on my Instagram and see that today, I just posted it 2 or 3 posts ago, that right now we have 45,000 people being held in ICE detention centers. Canada has 50,000 people in all of their prisons. The whole prison population. We have 45,000 just in ICE detention centers, including nearly 15,000 children. Last week, at multiple hearings where people from Homeland Security were brought in to testify, they were asked a simple question. Can you just tell me how many children you've separated from their parents? And there were 3 people there, and not one of them could even give them the accurate number. They said, can you tell us how many you've separated in total? Or can you just, they said, okay, can you tell me how many kids you have now? I said, no. They're not even keeping count. If we're getting better and better and better, how come there are kids who've been taken from their parents and we can't even count them? This was when I was in middle school. This is genocide in Rwanda, where 1 million people were hacked to death in about 90 days. If we're getting better and better over time, if this is how humanity works, how do we explain that? It's because this might be how our iPhones and Androids work, but it's not how people work. People look like this. We're getting better and better and better. How do we explain the reality that 102 people, unarmed, non-violent African Americans were shot and killed by police last year? Now you may see that number, 102, and it's a sterile number. It doesn't tell you. But do you know who that is? Does anyone know? There's a clue in the bottom left-hand corner. I heard it is a president. I was at a middle school recently, and a kid yelled out Jimmy Carter. Oh Lord, we're not doing our jobs in our school. It's not Jimmy Carter. It's not Harding. It's McKinley. And if you said you were thinking McKinley, you're a liar. He was the 25th president. He died in office. You have to go all the way back. This is probably in 1902. You have to go back to when he was president to find the last year that 102 or more people were lynched in this country. And when an unarmed, non-violent African American is killed by police, that is a legal lynching. What is a lynching? A lynching is not just death by hanging. A lynching is when someone basically faces judge, jury, and executioner all in one moment. Do you know that the only crime they claimed Eric Garner actually committed, they claimed they thought he sold someone a cigarette, which you get a ticket for. You can't even arrest someone for it. You just give someone a written citation. What crime did Sandra Bland really commit? What crime did Tamir Rice commit? If we're getting better and better, if this is how time works, how do we explain this? If we're getting better and better and better, how do we explain the absolute explosion of mass incarceration? People see this and they say the justice system is broken. What I need you to understand, to say that it's broken would be to suggest that it was actually well designed and well intentioned and has deviated from that. This isn't something that's broken. This was built on purpose. It actually is functioning exactly the way it was meant to function. It's not broken, it's functioning well. It's one of the most masterful systems in this country. It's how we have over 3 million people incarcerated at any given point in time, and Canada has 50,000. If we're getting better and better and better, how do we explain this? This is the rate of imprisonment. I don't mean to knock Rwanda, but we're first and Rwanda is second. Do you know why Rwanda is second? They just came out of genocide. We are almost double a nation that just came out of genocide. There's the United States and then a country that just emerged from genocide. We currently incarcerate more people in this country than South Africa did during the height of apartheid. Literally, South Africa's incarceration rate would be down here. We're here today. This is how technology works. It's not how humanity works. I'll close with this, and we'll take some questions. I believe that we are currently in a deep dip in the quality of our nation's humanity. And it is easy to conclude that we're here because of Donald Trump. But if you think that, you don't understand the dip in the first place. Because listen, he didn't build this. He liked it. Didn't build it. We are there. In fact, Donald Trump was elected as a symptom of the reality that we were already in a deep, ugly hole. His election, historically, will be viewed as such. 2 weeks before he was elected, a tape came out of him openly telling someone that he regularly kisses women without their permission.